Now I'll let John explain some of the major cultural management practices that we use before we get into the fungicidal control of white mold.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things beyond just Endura and using fungicides to control white mold that a lot of farmers don't realize that can really help with white mold control beyond just a chemical practice. So some of those things are, number one is tillage. So if they have the means to be able to do a little bit deeper tillage and burying that sclerotia, then basically what you're going to see is you're going to see that sclerotia get buried, and it's not going to be coming out into the apothecia like you would see. So burying that sclerotia with some deeper tillage is one practice. As well as that is going to be your planting population. So when you think down later in the season, you start planting your seed, your planting population. So with that is row spacing, but not only that, the planting population is very important because it spaces each plant individually within that row. And what that does is that helps create a little bit more airflow through the canopy, under the canopy. And what you're going to see with that is you're going to see the environmental piece of the disease triangle go away. So if we don't have the environment, the disease and the fungus can't grow from there. So that's definitely something. And then the last thing that comes at the end of the year is just with harvest, and you're thinking about your harvest and you've got your heavy white mold fields, would be maybe moving those to the end of your harvest window, so you're not carrying that residue with that sclerotia over to new fields and infecting new fields that currently don't have white mold in them. So just kind of managing it there culturally. And then the other thing too is just in your decision making in the winter before the season even starts is when you sit down with your seed agronomist, picking the right type of varieties that are strong on white mold and have strong white mold numbers. And so Jason Fidelke is here to talk to you a little bit about credenz seed and some of those numbers that you could look into for white mold control.
If you're in a white mold area, you should be looking at selecting varieties that have some natural tolerance, that are strong on white mold to help you out. So your first line of defense is that, to actually look at the varieties. Credenz, the GT27s, LL GT27s have some varieties that really shine with white mold. 1660 in the 1.6 maturity is one of them that has a high white mold rating in it. It also is very good in IDC. It's a more straight line bean, so you can go narrower rows and cut the population back a little bit to actually help with the white mold, also because you help get some air movement through the beans. 1660s has been a solid variety for us. It's been proven in the field in our white mold trials. If you can go a little bit later, 2040 is another variety in the LL GT27 lineup that's very strong with white mold. That's a white flower soybean. It's got a very strong broad acre fit. But again, if you're looking for white mold, 24 is very solid. It's very solid with IDC. It's not quite as tall a bean, so you can go a little bit wider and it'll bush out a little bit more. But as I said earlier, your first line of defense with white mold is selecting the correct varieties, and then we can start integrating cultural practices and introducing fungicides to help work with your white mold problem that you might have on your farm.